Welcome to the UI experience. Welcome to the UI experience.
Good afternoon, urban intellectuals, and everybody out there in the UI-verse. That's our new phrase that we're going to call it, Urban Intellectuals Universe, UI Universe, pronounced UI Universe. And everybody else that's out there that's listening to our program, everybody out in web land, people on the phone, people at their computers at work with their headphones on, trying to keep their head down. We welcome you all, and we thank you for supporting our efforts to get positive information out to the public, as well as see if we can try and make some type of changes in this direction that we seem to be going in. That being said, as always, I'm going to start my show with the statement that the revolution won't be televised, but it must be funded. So I urge everyone to go to urbanintellectuals.com/members, and for the low price of $24 a year, you can become a card-carrying member of Urban Intellectuals. Also, you can also go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate if you want to donate more than $24 or less than $24 or $1 or 50 cents or whatever you think that you can afford to help us in our cause. We appreciate everything and everyone who donates. Topic number one. Well, before I go to topic number one, let me explain something that we're doing, at least today, because this is a kind of a format that I've been wanting to try, and I was thinking about it this morning. You know how when you oversleep and it kind of halfway messes up your whole flow for the day? I mean, it might even be 20 minutes to a half an hour that you wake up late, but everything that you tried to do that day seems to be pushed off by half an hour. But that's what I'm going through today. So since I came up with this idea a few weeks ago of turning Fridays into shows about special editions, if we want to deal with a lengthier subject and go to maybe an hour and a half to 2 hour show, or if I wanted to do Fridays occasionally as what we call a potluck Friday or free-for-all Friday, where basically if you call in, if you got an idea, if you got something that you want to talk about or something that you have a question about and you want our insight about it, you can either post your questions in the chat room, call in, ask us what we think about whatever it is that you want to talk about. So this particular Friday, because my day is so jacked up now, I didn't have any set topics that I really wanted to talk about. I got a few I wanted to talk about, but none that I had the opportunity to develop this morning before the show started. So we basically just going to dive in and go from there. First topic was brought to us by UI Jane, and her question is something that we brushed at during previous shows, but we never have really sat down and dealt with it as a subject. So for the first few minutes, let's deal with this. The question is, should we have our own curriculum, since we know that the dominant culture's curriculum is little to no interest to us? For an example, learning about czars, but not learning about pharaohs. Or, in another way of putting it, for those of you who don't know what a czar is, learning about ancient the civilizations and the governing systems of ancient Russia, as opposed to learning about the concurrent African kingdoms that were existing at the time on the continent. Why is one important and the other one is not? So the question posed is, what can we do? Should we? And if we should, what can we do to change the curriculum that teaches our children, not just our children, but all children, but especially our children, because we all realize the importance of self-worth. So, UI Jane, since it's your question, what do you think?
Of course, I think that overall our curriculum should be changed and fitted to our learning needs and wants. Because in school, I've stated all the time, I've first knowledge of ourselves in this country is us coming over here being slaves. And the worst thing about us them mentioning us being slaves, they try to put it as if that's something we wanted to do or it wasn't as bad as it seemed, but they worked us for free. But we learn about them as them always being in charge, always ruling. And not only does that make us see ourselves in a bad way, a bad light, in a negative way, as if we're always inferior, but that makes them see us, their kids, their generations, as seeing us as always being in an inferior situation. Everybody across the board, if we have to learn about the czars and we have to learn about Russia history, all the history in Europe, they throw a little Asian history in there, not much. But if we have to learn about European history, it should only be fair that it's balanced with African history. If one has to learn about one, one should learn about the other. There's nothing wrong with us learning about Russian history. I find the story of the Romanovs exciting. Love to hear about it. I love to hear about any history. So with that being said, I know some of us get bored hearing all the time about them. And when you're bored with education overall, you don't want to learn, period. But once you learn to hear about yourself and how you were superior, how your people moved and invented things and created things and built things, it sparked a different interest in learning. But when you always have to learn about someone else and what they did, you're bored. So overall, I think the educational system in America should be changed, but definitely in more urban schools or predominantly black schools. We've begun a dumbing down. When we taught ourselves and we catered to what we knew and what we needed. We produced more doctors, more lawyers, more chemists, more biologists, more scientists, because we were taught our history. We were taught what we knew to be our truth versus their truth.
Well, of course you're going to get those people who are going to push back about it, that's going to say, well, he who wins the wars gets to write the history. And that since the dominant culture did, quote-unquote, take over the world, then they should be able to, determine what they think is history. Now, that brings to mind a different question. If we did decide that the curriculum had to be changed, how is it that we can bring this about, and to what directions should we push it to? TB, what you think?
Oh, wow, this is one of those ones that's deep. It goes beyond just a surface answer. I think I start with the knowledge itself of what we're being taught. The fact is it comes from someone else. When we were brought here, we started to learn someone else's identity. We started to learn someone else's skills, someone else's teaching methods, someone else's psychology of what we should be about, which is never a good thing, because you wind up learning about other people, other ways, other things, and not yourself. So it creates in itself a separation of who we really are and what we really stand for. So if you're looking at trying to change this around and you want to do this for ourselves, then that's supposedly, at least from what I'm thinking, that's supposedly what the HBCUs were created for. Supposedly, we were supposed to be able to learn about our own selves, our own identity, our own languages, and the subjects that Erica spoke of. We were supposed to be able to teach those things to ourselves in those environments, in the HBCU environments. That hasn't happened, nor has it happened in the public school systems, because we don't run the public school systems. White people run the public school systems, and the state, which is funded by white folks, they give you the money to determine what you're going to teach in the public school system. So the only way to really be able to teach our children, or even teach ourselves who we really are, is to create our very own schools. Fund our very own schools, build schools that are named after us, and that from the moment you walk in that school, it is clear that that school is going to teach you about African-related subject matter. And again, that I don't see that happen unless we actually do this ourselves. Because how do you ask a white person to contribute to your school, but then you're not able to teach your own subject matter? There's a conflict of interest there. So you would have to not involve them at all It would have to be 100% about your own race, the own cultural factors. And then you can look at your beliefs. You can look at your own cultural practices. But if you're in a school that is run by whites, funded by whites, and whites are teaching you, you can't go in there and say, hey, can you teach me about, what black folks think? They're not going to do that.
Okay. Now, let's look at the possible stumbling blocks, because you mentioned a few. Credentialing, for one thing. Okay. Say, for instance, everybody that's on this call, we all banded together. We're all fairly smart people. We have a few, degrees to throw around. We got plenty of, enough letters to start a bowl of alphabet soup. And we have decided we want to open a charter school. But the purpose and the drive of this charter school is to teach black kids in the community sense of self, our sense of history, the, historical successes that we have enjoyed as a people over the last few thousand years that basically didn't come to an end until this, curious form of slavery that existed, a few hundred years ago. We get this school. We develop this curriculum that's going to be taught at this school. Now we run into a problem with being credentialed by certain groups that basically provide the credentials for each individual school system in each individual state and each individual municipality all across the United States. How do we go around, or how do we get around that particular issue? Because the reason, for example, if a child graduates from my school, and I've taught this child, I've taught him Plato to NATO, but I have taken Plato to NATO and reduced Plato to NATO to the level that, say, ancient Egypt around the time of the pharaohs. They get that in school, but they only get maybe a week worth of that in school compared with, the other 9 months of the year. They get everything basically whitewashed. Flip the script. Now that child, in order for that child to enter college, that child has to take, say, the SATs or the GMAT or whatever the credentials are now. I forget what the letters are now for all the different tests that they have to take. How does that child pass that test? And I guess an even more important question: will he even be allowed to take that test? Because you can't walk up into a college and say, I want to enroll in college, and they ask you where you went to school at, and you say, I'm self-taught. I basically read a lot of books. They're not going to let you into college. So I want to go to Patrick with this, because I know UI is working on a credentials package. What do you think about that particular question?
Well, UI is working on both a curriculum and a charter school, but addressing the credentials area is difficult because in one vein you would say, well, we can just circumvent it, but to circumvent it, you would need a community, which would mean you would have a structure in place that would hold your certificate, your diploma, your degree, your whatever your finished product is, in some sort of esteem and deem it worthwhile, which is really all a credential is to say, okay, we hold your education as valid. And since we don't have our own industries and sectors and things like that to be able to say, you know what, we're going to hold UI's curriculum as valid, it becomes difficult. So in a way, you kind of have to play the game, and you have to teach to Common Core, which luckily enough doesn't explicitly say that you have to teach this, and this. It just kind of says you got to cover this subject, and this subject, but you can cover it, and you kind of get leeway in how you can cover it. So you kind of have to play the game in that regard, where you cover things that they tell you to cover, but you kind of slant it a little bit so that it still suits whatever goal you're after. Obviously, when it comes to college prep tests and getting into college, they have the college placement exams for kids that haven't taken the SAT or the ACT, but the wonderful thing about the SAT and the ACT are, at least when I took it anyways, there weren't any real, shall we say, like culture-specific type questions. I mean, some reading can be seen as culture-specific, and some of the reading can most definitely be give an edge to somebody from a certain type of education or background. But as far as the math, and if you teach a kid reading comprehension, like reading comprehension is reading comprehension. Math is math. So you kind of got to dance around it a little bit, but you can still do it. The more difficult part is, like Terry said, getting support and getting funding for a curriculum or for a school or for a program that's going to be operating outside of the norm. Even if you do get credentials, or even if you say, forget it, we're not going to go after credentials, you still have to get funding. And people still have to view whatever it is you're teaching as valid and valuable. And, you know, that's kind of what the credentials cover. But if you're going another route, you kind of have to prove what you're teaching to other people in order to get the support. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making a whole lot of sense, because what I hear is this. Is the same thing. I had a discussion with a brother not too long ago about that particular situation, about how if you look at most colleges, if you read between the lines and you look at the fine print, they'd always say that this particular learning institution is accredited by the North Central colleges and universities credentialing system, whatever the case may be, however the language may be, because it varies from university to university. What that actually means is that depending on what you're teaching, you can't really just open a school, because there are legal ramifications as well, which is the reason why you don't see a lot of devil worship in schools popping up everywhere. Just official schools for just atheists, or, you know, just Satanists, or, you know, just Muslims, or, you know, just this or just that. You don't see them popping up because it's against the law. Plus, like you said, from the funding point of view, we all know that the only people that's going to really fund those schools is going to be us. It's going to be the parents who's willing to send their kids there. And it is an extremely expensive undertaking to open a school, which is why it's generally left to the government to be able to, you know, to fund these different institutions. Even with the, you know, the advent of charter schools coming up in a lot of jurisdictions, it's still the vast majority of that money comes from federal sources because of the expense that's involved. So when we have this group of parents who have decided that we've given a good presentation at the local community center and they all with it, and now you go to them people and say, okay, well, it's going to cost you $1,500 off the barrelhead, because, you know, we got to find a spot, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to do this. If you think it's a good idea, it's going to cost money, and that money is going to have to come from you through tuition. That's when people are going to start to drift away. Additionally, there is always going to be that group of our communities that's going to say, oh, man, that school can't never be as good as, you know, Shea Whitey over here, because over here, you know, they turn out, you know, when you graduate from there, you guaranteed to get into a good college and this, that, this, and the other, and because they don't understand how education works, you know. So I guess my question would be, where does the initial funding come from? E.T., I'm going to throw you under the bus with this one. That's right, we're going from person to person. It's free for all. Lightning question.
First off, before I answer your question, I want to touch on just a little of what Patrick said. The idea for me personally of us having our own school, like Patrick said, math is math. Comprehension is comprehension. I don't see us not being able to pass the test if we created our own curriculum. I see us being able to ace the test, because we teach math, and our math, the way we teach it, is catered to a standard group of people that many of us aren't included in. But if we were to start our own curriculum, I think we wouldn't be as left behind as you see most of us are today. I think if we were to start our own schools, that we would actually be more advanced than where we are today. Therefore, we'll be able to go in there and take their standardized testing and pass them. And that's, to me personally, where the HBCUs come in. That a lot of those testing, the ACT and SAT, are geared towards them, the mainstream, the dominant society, not us, to get into their schools. HBCUs shouldn't, to me, base get into their schools off of white people testing. We should be able to get into their schools based off of a test that maybe we created ourselves. Because, again, if we're going to their schools, it's not to an HBCU, it's not to learn what I can learn in a white person's school, in a dominant society school. I want to go there to learn about myself. And their testing shouldn't deem whether I'm worthy enough to get into your school. Their testing is deemed to see whether I'm worthy enough to get into their schools. But funding will have to come from us. It should be federally funded. It should be state funded. But we all know that's not going to be the case. So if these are the things we want in our own communities, then that's what we have to do. When we first started educating ourselves back when we first got over here, or, you know, when Mary McLeod Bethune started her school, I'm quite sure that wasn't funded by the federal or the state. So with that being said, we have to see a need and a want for it. Right now, you know, the black America don't see a need for it for the most part if they're not conscious, because they're happy when their child go to these white schools and make our A's because our child learned to assimilate and learn the way that they learn. So therefore, it should be funded by the state or federal government, because they should see a need for us to learn. It'll benefit the country overall if we produce more. You know, higher testing, higher learning. But that's not going to happen. So we have to fund it ourselves.
Okay, and you're right. You are absolutely correct. I don't want people to get the wrong idea. That's what I meant. I misspoke, as white folks say. You know, what I meant to say about the SATs is not so much that, you know, it's geared toward white people per se, because like you say, math is math, science is science. That goes, you know, beyond race. But there are cultural specific things and cultural questions on the ACT and on the SAT that you are more likely to have experienced and more likely to be able to answer if you come from the dominant community. Not to say that we can't pass it. We can pass it. We pass it all the time. You know, I'm a prime example of that. I never went to school in high school, you know, and I did well. I got into college. I went just enough to keep from getting kicked out. That's how much I went. But so that being said, switching gears, we move to another subject along the same lines, but just a different version of it. Learning disabilities in the black community. We all know that, you know, we make the big jokes about the small bus, and you rode the little yellow bus to school instead of the big bus with, you know, the normal kids, or you had whole sections of the school that was basically cordoned off for, you know, the quote-unquote special ed students, and these was not necessarily, you know, flat-out Asperger's or, you know, autistic kids, although some of them were. This was, you know, people who might have dyslexia. They might be just a little bit slow, you know, and require alternative means of education. How big is that in the black community? Is it something that's undersold? Is it something that's overstated? Because we all know that there's this idea that the first time a black student acts out in class, you know, he's singled out for special education, and now that's going to follow him throughout his educational career. But it's a real thing. And how deep do you think that particular issue goes, and what can we do about it? UI Jane.
I'm here.
Okay, did you hear me?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was eating. Yes, first off, I think a lot of the learning disabilities come from overpopulation of classrooms. And I know that firsthand because my oldest child, she struggled somewhat in school. It was something I actually realized when she was 3 years old, that her learning wasn't where I thought it should be. Fought with her doctor about getting her speech therapy, and eventually they ended up sending her to speech therapy, and they said, well, it's not a speech because she didn't speak as clear as I thought a 3-year-old should. They said, okay, it's her comprehension. She just have a problem with comprehending certain things. Well, when she started public school, she was doing great as the teacher thought, but when I would go and sit in, I would see it was a class of 16 kids and a teacher aide. So the ratio was 1 to 8. The teacher aide desk was right next to my daughter's desk. She sat right next to my daughter, and she helped my daughter the bulk of the time. But my daughter got all A's and B's. I had an issue with it. The district was like, no, she's doing fine. She's getting A's and B's. And I'm like, yeah, that's because someone's sitting at the table with her, helping her the whole time. They tested her, gave her IEP, and, of course, found out what I already knew. She went to special education, and her class ended up being 1 to 10. It was 10 students in there. My daughter ended up being ahead of what the regular class was. When she was going to the regular class, she was ahead of them. So with that being said, it wasn't so much to me as the learning disability, it was the class setting. A lot of our kids have a hard time learning, white or black, because it's an overpopulation. The teacher has to rush through the curriculum. So it's one of those, if you're advanced, you're going to be behind a little because you're not learning at the rate you should. And if you have a slight learning disability where you need to take your time, then you're going to also be behind. So, again, a lot of it is misdiagnosed simply because the student-to-teacher ratio isn't where it should be. We're overcrowding the classroom. We have some schools where it's 1 teacher and 30 students. So, of course, there's going to be about 10 of those students that's behind. And then when they're tested, they're not on the level they should be not because they have a learning disability, yes and no, but also because the teachers can't take the time to teach them because they have to speed up and be on this calendar that they're set to be on to make sure the kids are learning or passing this standardized, no left behind test that each state has.
Okay. But, of course, detractors will throw this argument into the mix. If that's the case, and I think that is true, I think that underfunding of inner-city schools creates that very high teacher-to-student ratio, and I think it's something that needs to be dealt with. But detractors will say, okay, well then, how is it that these individuals can go on to college and be in a class with 300 other students, or if you look at the extreme, if you go to these online schools, and I do tech support for a higher education company, and I get a lot of calls from instructors that, can't find a certain student in their class, and I go and I look at their class, and I find out they have 800 students spread across 8-9 schools, and the kids seem to, I guess, roll with the punches. They seem to find a way to make this work and to actually graduate from these schools of higher education. So that's what a detractor would say, that it doesn't really matter how many teachers as it relates to how many students. It's the quality of the teaching that's the problem. It's the access to certain materials, up-to-date books, enough writing materials, enough ancillary materials that goes along with the course or goes along with the textbook. So Terry, let me ask you, looking at how we were taught coming up in school, because I don't think I've ever been in a class that had more than 1 teacher. I can't remember ever having a teacher's aide, a few substitutes, but never, 2 people in the class. And basically we came out okay. And if anything, schools were even more underfunded at that time because there weren't laws in place that made sure that these schools had access to the same or similar amounts of funding as like the suburban schools or the all-white schools. So how important do you think it is of class size and student to teacher ratio?
I think it has a role, but I just don't see it as being the main reason why it would create a learning disability in a person. I'm looking at the cultural identity and the cultural destructiveness that was put in place in the first place. I think what I'm looking at is a cultural blindness in which we approach people's strengths, but we ignore the cultural strength of that person. And that then sets you up for what you're going to learn as you begin your life. So this belief is that, the dominant culture is going to apply a certain way of thinking to you. And then when you're born, you're supposed to assimilate and learn that culture's way of thinking. And if you happen to be a black person or a black family who you just aren't that kind of a person, then you're starting out from behind. Whether you had 5 teachers instructing you or 1 teacher instructing you, there's a pre-competence there that gives you this false sense of accomplishment if you are not already assimilated to that culture. So what I'm looking at is there's 4 basic things we all have to learn how to do. You have to learn how to read, you have to learn how to write, you have to learn how to spell, and you have to learn how to think. So the number of people that are teaching you this, it becomes somewhat irrelevant because your mom and your dad can teach you how to read and write, spell, and think, as can your uncles, aunts, cousins, and so on. Once you actually get into the school, some of that knowledge should be carried into the school. And so for me back in the 60s and 70s when I went to school, I never had 2 teachers in the classroom. I had 1. But by the time I was ready to go to school, I was already up on what reading was, writing was, spelling was, and thinking was. So I think we need to develop a cultural proficiency as a race. So we do research. You have to almost sometimes go home to home, kid to kid, and find out what is this kid learning from the time they're little that sets them up for social responsibility, that has them understand where they are in life, so that by the time they get ready to go to school in kindergarten in the 1st grade, you can know in the beginning, is this child, is he strong enough? Is mentally, is this child strong enough to learn what it is that the dominant society is going to be able to teach him? And it's like we're looking for a miracle pill, but there really is no miracle pill. I think we teach our children from the time they're young the things that we've learned. We set them up to understand what a verb is, what a predicate is, what a noun is. How do you write the word cat? What is a cat? I mean, when you do the basics, and most of our children are intelligent children. They're very smart. I mean, you got kids that are 3 and 4 years old that know how to do this twerk stuff. They know how to sing a whole rap song from beginning to end, and they're like 5 years old. I used to have neighbors. These kids were singing songs. I'm like, how do these 5-year-old kids know that? But then I asked them, what is a house? And you can't really tell me what a house is. But you can sing every single song to Nelly's song. It's just so kids are smart. It's just a matter of how are you starting them out culturally to fit in and blend into this society.
Okay. Brings to mind another point. And Patrick, I want to go to you with this. If we look at it as education as a holistic type of situation or a holistic type process that begins from the time that the child is old enough to actually be aware of his surroundings up until the time that basically we drop them off at college and tell them, peace, have a good life. As somebody I know that is not big into TV, I think you told me once that, you don't even own a TV and your children didn't come up watching TV. How important do you think it is that you keep children away from the images that's coming through the television? How much do you think that retards their ability to pay attention to important lessons that are taught in school?
Well, I think TV is huge. And when I say huge, I mean gigantic. Not just TV, but all of the new forms of media they got now. iPods, iPads, doo-wops, coo-wops, chew-wops, TVs, DVDs, MCDs, KCVs, GDs. They got a device for everything. And I think with having all these things at your fingertips, it makes it, one, extremely difficult to be able to focus because you can just go from one thing to the next and Focusing, I don't care what anybody says, focusing is something that you have to practice. You have to, like, everybody is born with the ability to focus, but how good you are at it depends, just like on anything else, how much you use it and how often you actually focus on things. So I think that's huge. I think this question in itself is huge, because you also get into another aspect, which is culture. And I posted in the chat, there was a study done out of Kentucky that showed that children with a sense of racial pride did better in school. They aren't going to get that on TV. What they're going to get on TV are the music videos, the all of the lowest common denominators when it comes to black society, black people in prison, black people is this, black people is that. But, nothing to make you feel proud about who you are. Nothing to make you really feel like you can accomplish things. Because most of the things you see on TV, anybody that's doing anything of any substance is not black. They're normally doing things of substance by attacking the bad guy who's either wearing a black costume or he's black in general, or, whatever the case may be. Even Batman, who is one of the only good guys with black in his character role, is kind of a dark hero. So I think all of those things play a role when you start talking about the early development of children. Like, they pick up on cues, and things that we as adults can rationalize away become embedded cultures for children, and we grow up and we see those things. But I think that's one of the reasons why I think we should be turning off the TV. Black children utilize electronic media more than any other children in the world. They consume more media than any other group of children in America. I mean, that's just what it is. And so when you begin to think about a kid going into school, 5 years old, he doesn't really know how to read or write. The only images he has of himself is of a blinged out rapper or a prisoner of some sort, or whatever the case may be. Everything he's seen in his life tells him or her that being successful and being intelligent not only is not them, and not only is it not for them, but it's not necessarily cool to be that. And then you're going to sit here and tell this kid who's got that for the first 5 years of their life through a parent that just simply doesn't see that that's what's happening, or a parent that's not paying attention, or it could even be a parent that's so busy providing for their child that they just don't have the time to provide that adequate supervision that's needed in early development. And then you get mad at a child for not really being connected with a lesson plan. Or you get mad at a child for not really being able to focus on what's going on. Or you get mad at a child for not necessarily picking things up as fast as they should. And then you start with all of the developmental disorders, this, that, and the third that come in later. But I think it all starts at the early stages with things like a TV that has 500 channels and your child is sitting in front of that TV for 8 hours a day with the remote in their hands and no supervision. Things like that I think are what kick it off. A kid that has 300 channels of cable memorized can tell you what each network is, but then he'll get to school and can't remember the alphabet to save his life, and won't sit still long enough to learn the alphabet, because he got 300 other things going through his mind. Soon as you say A, he thinking about ABC, Animal Channel, Animal Network, Appraisers Network. You say B, and he off to something else. Now he's not even paying you no attention, because he's thinking about the newest B starting cartoon that just came on. By the time he tunes back into you, you're on Y and Z. So he's got A, B, C, D, Y, Z, sing with me. And we're attacking these. And I know for a lot of people, they're going to be like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And that is an oversimplification of the process. But it doesn't change the fact that when I go into the schools, that's what I see. Even at the high school level, that's what I see. I see kids that can't focus because everything is at their fingertips outside of school. They don't have to focus outside of school. I see kids that aren't really connected to the curriculum. I see kids who don't really see any future in academics for them. I can't tell you how many times I hear academics ain't for black people.
Or why you want to learn all that stuff? You trying to be a white boy? Yeah, we've all heard that. Good points, everybody. Good points. Rapid fire. Moving on to the next issue, and this is just things that I picked up off of the web over the last couple of days that I kind of just want to see where everybody sits with this. E.T., I'm coming to you. Mr. Dunn, who murdered Jordan Davis, because we can now call him a murderer now because he has been found guilty of murder. So all the white folks that were giving him money, it is what it is. That's what he is. He's a murderer. Got life in prison. E.T., is justice served?
Part of me wants to say yes, but thanks to Patrick, no. I mean, again, that unconscious side of me is like, of course, he's in jail. But, I mean, it's not going to stop them from killing us. It wasn't enough to make us see that we need to do better as a society or as the black community and better educate ourselves so that situations like this won't occur again. And truthfully, life in prison sometimes means nothing. He was an older man anyway. So, I mean, he probably has a couple of years in prison, if that, before he's dead. So, again, part of me says yes because, his family is probably, Mr. Jordan Davis' family probably is sleeping better at night because they know the person that killed their son didn't get off. But, again, at the same time, I mean, when we have Mike Brown family can't sleep at night and the countless of other young black men in this country that are killed for no apparent reason, then justice hadn't been served. Justice will be served once our young boys can walk the streets and don't have to worry about whether some young white man or black man will gun them down.
Okay. I see that you and Patrick has probably been having some kind of sidebar conversation about this particular situation. But, I think when we dealt with the Ferguson situation in one of our previous shows, I don't know, I think I want to say it was the first week that we started doing these shows. My question has always been the what now? Because even if you do find Darren Wilson, still Officer Darren Wilson, hasn't got fired yet, punk ass. But anyway, even if we find him guilty, will that change anything in the overall scheme of things? Other than the fact that, they used to say back in the day that the death penalty had a deterrent effect. And people say, well, the death penalty doesn't deter other people from committing crimes. And then the detractors would say, yeah, but it deters this one individual right here. He not going to do anything wrong ever again. It's the same thing with this situation. If you find him guilty, you find Michael Dunn guilty, you find whoever else might be under investigation, the white cop that killed John Crawford in the Walmart, you find them guilty, yeah, that's one individual that you've taken off of the street, but the actual mentality itself still exists. The actual structure that is in place that leads to these murders, because that's what they are, that leads to these murders is still in place. Patrick, is justice served?
No. And I shouldn't say it like that because I understand why people would say yes. I really do. Like, I get it. But me personally, the man was already in jail for 60 years. He was already in jail for the rest of his life. Coming back later and saying, okay, now we're gonna put you in jail. Now you're really in jail for the rest of your life. No. Every now and then, every good, and I hate to term it like this, but I'm going to just say it. Every now and then, every good master throw their dog a bone. And that's just to keep their dog from biting them. I see all of this as just that. When you got George Zimmerman walking free, you got John Crawford, the cop that killed him, walking free. You got Darren Wilson still getting paid to be free. You got all of these people, the cops in L.A. still free. The cops, we got to remember, according to the FBI statistics, there's a black person killed, or what was it? It was either unarmed or a black person. I can't remember, but it doesn't matter in any case. Every 28 hours, a black person is killed by the police. So that means, yeah, you got Darren Wilson. You got Jordan Davis's killer. You already had him. He was already locked up for 60 years. Now you're going to go back on top of that and throw a life sentence on because you convicted him of murder after he was already convicted of something that had this 50, 60-year-old man in prison for 60 years already. You want to go and convict him of murder, and you want us to stand back and say, yeah, you did us a favor? And then you got all of these other, it's got to be up to 100 now or more, hundreds of officers and other people that have killed black people since Jordan Davis has died that are still walking the streets free. No, that's not justice. What that is you playing with my emotions. Don't play with my emotions. Don't do that. Not only is that not nice, but when I catch on, I'm going to be very upset.
You've already caught on. Because, like we said previously, it's always been basically, like you're saying, throwing somebody a bone. We'll sacrifice him not because we thought he was wrong in what he did, but we'll sacrifice him for not doing it in a manner that we at least couldn't protect you, right? For instance, take the situation with Mr. Webb near Ferguson that's going on now. Now, the argument now is, did he have a gun? Did he not have a gun? Did the police plant the gun at the scene? Did the coroner or the forensics experts, did they plant evidence? Did they just say that basically he had gun residue on his hands when he actually didn't? Did he pick it up by standing next to somebody who fired a gun? Was the police close enough that when he shot him, the residue from his gunshot ended up on the body? My problem with the legal system, criminal justice in particular, especially when it comes to these trials, is that we're not educated enough on things that matter. If I get on the stand, I'm Jalal Tariq, ACCB, MD, MXD3, ADDI, DAS. I'm just, the shit when it comes to alphabets behind my name. I can get up on the stand and say, in my professional experience, I think that the evidence shows blah, 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 blah. Even the most erudite, even the most educated of us will sit in that jury box and we will accept what that individual says. And we've seen it in the past, and it was, briefly dealt with, quickly swept up under the rug, where you have these forensics evidence experts now that are coming out and found out to be completely liars. And they have lied in hundreds and hundreds, in some cases. That I think it was one guy in West Virginia had testified in thousands of cases where they said the evidence, basically DNA evidence, shows that this individual did this or this individual did that. And come to find out he was lying. What do you do in a situation like that? Because you can't let these thousands of people go, because if you do, then you have to pay these thousands of people for all of the X amount of years that they spent wrongly in prison. But getting back to the point is that we're not educated enough about how the process works. We're not educated enough about what DNA stands for, what it's meant to represent, and how those individual little bitty things that we don't know about can spell doom for an innocent man? How many people know that it's not absolutely true that no two people in the world share the same fingerprints? How many people know they always accepted that as being true because that's what's always been taught? It's bullshit. It says that the probability of two people on this planet sharing the same fingerprints is, 1 in 4 or 5 billion, but it's possible. And I think that what that ends up doing is, especially in situations like this, what it ends up doing is it gives us a false sense of calm. That here you go, Negroes. Yeah, here you go. Yeah, tear his ass up. Send him to prison. Put him amongst the hard brothers in prison and let them rape him and kill him or whatever the case may be. We don't care because he's a cog in the machine. Our problem is the machine. We can talk about that until we blue in the face. But until we make a significant inroads to those people who don't know, that's all we're going to do is talk until we're blue in the face. It's not the individual, it's the system. Justice will never be served by the imprisonment of one individual who did something wrong. Just like crime in the hood won't, no matter how many people that you lock up out the hood, crime is never going to decrease in the hood because crime is not about individual people. Crime is about a structure, a system that needs to be dealt with. Okay, I'm getting off of my soapbox. Okay, we're moving on to the next question. Everybody read, I don't know everybody, but I'm assuming that most of us, we're fairly good readers. Everybody read.
You're not gonna give Terry a shot at that.
I wasn't even gonna say anything, man. I just forget it. Let's just go. No, I didn't say anything. You asked Erica and Patrick, and that was it. So let's just keep it moving.
Okay, I know he's chomping at the bit, but we're gonna keep it moving anyway because we're running low on time. We started a little late, but we're gonna probably go a little bit early, over past the 2 p.m. mark. Did everybody hear what Stacy Dash said? Anybody didn't hear it?
Yeah.
Let me give you a Cliff Notes version of it. You Negroes are undereducated and basically in a worse position under President Obama than you were before he came into office. Agree or disagree? Point, counterpoint. Terry, you first.
Well, I'm not even concerned with Stacy Dash. Why should I be? I mean, you asking me like a question about Stacy Dash. I mean, who is she? That's my answer.
This is she. No, she's Fox News' resident blackface. She's Fox News' celebrity, I know what I'm talking about, and basically I speak for a significant portion of black America when we want to turn around and point the finger at the rest of black America who just don't get it.
She's their multicultural program. She's their diversity program.
Oh, my bad.
She's the black white lady.
Basically, that's what she is. But the question is not about Stacy Dash per se, because you can exchange her with Alan West. He says the same shit, And what's this? Armstrong Williams. We can go down the line.
Which is why it's irrelevant. See, look. First of all, it's Fox. So we already know Fox. We already know Fox is conservative. Fox is all about attacking black folks. It's all about promoting Republicans. So when they find some token to be on their show, of course the token's going to say something negative about black folks. So again, why is that relevant?
It's relevant. It's relevant in the sense of it's a legitimate question. Are we better off under President Obama, or are we not? That's a legitimate question because there are some.
Bro, we're not. We've never been better. We've never been better off under any president.
Yeah, that's true.
I was just about to say that, Terry.
So what are you saying? I'm just tired of these token ass niggas getting on these white shows and selling themselves out and selling the race. It's just ridiculous. She's on this show and you get these other clowns on here, and the first thing they do is want to go against the race. So what she said is just not relevant. She's just appeasing them, and that's why she's on Fox. So no, we're not better off because this just what the presidency is. You tell me a president who we were better off under.
Exactly.
The first white president, the first black president, what was his name?
President Clinton.
If that's the case, we could say we were better off under Lincoln because he cracked under pressure and quote unquote freed us niggas. So no, look, this is the United States of America. The way their system is set up, we are never as a race going to be better off. That's just not going to happen. I don't care who the president is. It's just not going to happen because the economy and the way the economy is set up, the way the government is set up, it is not set up to include us in its equality. It's not set up to include us in its fairness, in its push for justice. That's why we're dealing with the black folks being shot down now. So I don't care who the president is. I don't care what black person gets on a white show and goes against us. We are not ever going to be better off because we do not run this country, period.
And that's the worst thing that a black person can do is look for their president to change their situation. That's how we get caught up in the cycle we're in now, because we depend on whatever president is in office, not realizing that the president is only a face for international purposes. That's the only reason why a president exists, in my opinion, is to be the face for international purposes. Other than that, it's always about your local government.
Big head. Next question. Lightning round. Patrick, should we start enjoying gun clubs amongst us?
Whew.
We already do have them. They call them gangs, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a dangerous proposition. And I'll tell you why. John Crawford. For those of you that don't know, and I would just leave it at that, but for those of you that don't know, that John Crawford is the man that was shot in Walmart for having an air rifle. And if you watch the video, he looked like he was in a section of Walmart all by himself. You didn't even see anybody else in the video until the cops came in after he was shot. So, I know we already have them, and they've been marching around and stuff. They had a national display, I believe it was in Texas. Let me just say this. If you're going to be black, and personally, I'm a fan of concealed weapons. I do think every black person should have a permit, and they should have a weapon somewhere. When you start getting into open carry, public displays, and all this other stuff, I think you have to remember that you're black. And I hate to say it like that, but that's just the way that's the way you got to say it. You have to remember that trying to do everything white folks do is what got us into a lot of the trouble we in right now. Like, we can't just keep following blindly behind white folks. Like, sometimes we just got to let white folks do white folks. And we got to do us. And right now, in the current state of things with the way they are now, where cops are shooting people without guns, you got people that are telling us we need to get guns and walk around with them in groups. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it. I just don't, like, I'm not telling nobody to go get your gun. Make sure you got your permits and everything up to snuff. That might not be enough to stop them from killing you, but at least you know you got one. Go get your gun. Protect yourself. Learn how to shoot it. Start a little private militia. Do whatever you want. But if you go public with it, in my opinion, you're asking to be shot dead. And the revolution can't use you or your gun if you're dead. Sorry. That's my opinion.
That's for sure.
You know what, Patrick? I just read an article earlier this week. The state of Illinois, some people are being questioned because African American men were intentionally being denied the right to carry or their gun permit. So how can we even get a gun permit when they're denying us? I mean, even military veterans. It's people that aren't seemingly posing a threat to the community, they're denying them their permits because they're black. So it's going to be kind of hard for us to even get permits when they're denying us a vet, just like they deny us of everything else. And it's weird that this topic come up because one of my classmates, a white guy, his son's birthday was the other day, and for his birthday, and the little boy only turned 10, he took him to practice shooting off a rifle for the first time at 10 years old. That was his birthday present. And this is someone I must mention. It was only 4 white people that graduated high school with me. So he grew up in a predominantly black area, but he still didn't sway away from his roots as a white boy or as a white person because he still believes in all the rest of the stuff that white people believe in, like teaching their kids how to properly shoot an armed rifle.
Well, here's the deal. And this is where I go back to saying I do think every black person needs to know how to fire a weapon. Point blank, period. I think every person needs to know how to fire a weapon, to be honest with you. But I can't say that I agree with the idea of black people walking around with guns in public, in groups. I mean, they're killing, they're literally, now we can honestly say they are literally killing black people simply for being black. Like, you're a threat because you have melanin. At this point, I'm not saying don't get a gun. I'm not saying don't learn how to shoot. I'm saying you might want to consider the ramifications if you get a gun and decide to walk around in public with your partners, because they just popped John Crawford for having an air rifle in a store that sells air rifles. I mean, that's I mean, so we gotta be realistic about the things. Get your guns, do whatever you have to do to be prepared. I'm definitely not saying that, but you got to be realistic about the situation and the times we living in.
That is true. Now this is my take on the situation, and this is how I think it should be dealt with. Just like I can go to a gun show and I can purchase a firearm at that gun show, be it an AK-47, be it a Glock, be it an old school Derringer, be it a P-38 from World War II. I can purchase that weapon at that gun show with no background check, right? I think that we as a people should take advantage of that law while it still exists because they're beating at that law. Go buy you all the guns that you feel like you need to protect yourself. Learn how to fire them, teach your family how to fire them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Keep those weapons at home. I don't, like Patrick says, suggest that, hey, man, meet me at Hooters, man, and bring them things. You know what I mean? I can't see that because all it takes is one 911 phone call from some super paranoid white person to say, there's a group of Negroes here and all of them got guns. You know what's getting ready to happen, But that being said, I also think that there is a place for armed displays. Let's put it like that. Just like Reagan ended up having to change the laws in California because the Black Panthers basically came and just rode down on the state capitol armed to make a point. I think that in certain situations, you're going into these city county meetings, you're going into certain places, be armed. And now I'm not talking about 100 people armed because then all it takes is a bad mistake, somebody bump into somebody, a round go off, and now the war done started. But I think that there is a place for displays of armed insurrection, just displays. And nobody's saying go out and kill no white people. What I'm saying is let people know that, there is a group of us that are armed. As a matter of fact, you don't even know how many of us are armed, but we got them things. And keep those things in your home for self-protection. Somebody was going to say something?
No, I'm gonna hold my peace on this because Terry's up and I know we running, but Boy, I'm sorry.
Right on. Well, and I thought, this is Friday. I thought we were going over anyway. So
yeah, we going over anyway.
Yeah, so we good. No, just I'll get in quickly because Patrick, I want you to get that point in because see, when it fires you up, you need to be able to speak. For me, I'm not joining a gun club. I just because what it does then is it says to me I'm celebrating guns, and I don't celebrate guns. They're supposed to be used only as a last resort to defend yourself should somebody try to kill you. So no, I'm not joining a gun club, but I have carried guns. I own guns. I mean, I know how to use them, but I'm not joining a club to celebrate them. Number one, that's something that white people do. I mean, they're the ones running around here shooting Bambi and his mom in the head and hanging them up on their wall, celebrating that. That's not something we do. So what I'm saying is we need to look at, who we are as a race, focus on what our strengths are intellectually, and try to move ourselves forward that way and not be caught up in trying to do the same things that the other race does. The Ku Klux Klan can carry guns and walk down the middle of the street and no police will show up. But then if you have 5 black dudes in black jackets and hats that do the same thing, the whole entire army will show up. So you can clearly see that they are waiting on you to get guns and display them publicly because then it's a justification for gunning you down. So let the gun remain where it should be, in your home and ready to be used in case somebody decided they want to break in your home and try to attack you or your family. But for me, I'm not getting a gun and carrying it out in public because this ain't Dodge City and I ain't Marshall Dillon.
Well, and then again, we also got to keep it real too. A lot of the people who up these video cameras at these instances of police brutality where they're gunning us down in the streets or beating our asses in the middle of the streets, a lot of them are armed. They got the cell phone in one pocket. They got the Glock in the other pocket. They choose to grab the cell phone, because these is happening in some of the roughest hoods in the United States. And you got agitators, and you got to remember, you got agitators that are with these phones and things looking to inflame the situation. So you got to be wise and understand that they're looking to inflame this. They want the media to have something to go on Nightline and send across the world to Europe and say, look at these black folks in America acting like animals. So we just need to be consciously aware of that and not feed into this. Same thing when I never got the chance to answer the question about the guy who got life. Justice is not served. It won't be served because the mentality is still running free. See, you can lock that one white person up, but the mentality of the white person is still running free. That says black people are animals. The black man is an animal, and he scares me. So if he just says one thing to me, I'm ready to shoot him. That mentality isn't going to stay in prison. That's one person. The mentality is still running free. So justice is never going to be served because the mentality still is free. Patrick, get off.
I mean, and I got a book about this called Strategies for the Black Revolution. And I think there's a lack of forethought. I think our position, because we are in a position of inferiority, is not to try to outmuscle the brute. You can't out-bully the bully. The bully is bullying you because he's bigger than you. If you were stronger than the bully wouldn't be bullying you in the first goddamn place. If all of the black people decided, if 100 black people decide to walk down the street with guns, that is an army. And guess what type of army is going to come meet those black people? One is twice as big and twice as well equipped. And they got every excuse to open fire because culturally, black people are degenerates. That's the way we're seeing in the media. It's not a hard sell. All them niggas was armed. We opened up with mortar shells, tank shots. We dropped bombs from the sky. You have to look at Tulsa, Oklahoma, something that's rarely talked about, was started because of a rape or an alleged rape incident in the elevator, yes. But it was really kicked off when there was a tussle over a gun in front of the courthouse and one of those white boys got shot. That precipitated the extermination of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And a lot of people don't know there were black people in Tulsa that were actually fighting back. You don't hear about them because they got overwhelmed. That's what's going to happen if we start an open warfare campaign, which would happen if we start walking around with guns in public in large amounts. We have to be real about the situation. We have to really understand what we're dealing with. We have to understand the history, the culture, and everything else that goes into it. We can't just say they do it, so I'm going to do it too. They're the dominant society. They do a lot of stuff you can't do. They do a whole bunch of stuff you can't do. And that's a poor reason to even try to do it in the first place. And again, our position as black people in America is not to try to outmuscle white people in America. Our position is to try to outthink them, something that shouldn't be too difficult because 95% of them don't think in the first place.
They don't have to because everything.
Exactly, but that's the whole other point is that they don't have to. We can't go into these things blind off emotions, off of whatever, off what we perceive to be true. We have to seriously consider where we are, the position we're in, culturally, socially, economically, politically, every other L-Y-L word you want to think of. We have to consider where we are in those terms, and we have to move accordingly, the best manner to get out of those terms. Should we be in a position where we can defend ourselves? Of course. Of course we should. But we're in a state of being right now where if the Deacons for Defense were around today, all of them would be shot dead on spot. Period.
No contradiction.
No, but of course they would. I'm gonna tell you something. I remember when we were in '85, just before I went to IU. There was down in Philadelphia. There was this black militant group called Move, and the government wanted to go and serve some arrest warrants on them. Again, it should have just been a thing. Well, okay, we got some folks we think did something wrong. We trying to serve these arrest warrants, and for 4 y'all. Remember, four arrest warrants, not 40, not 400, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like us, 4 people. They got arrest warrants for me, you, Eric, and Patrick. But instead of coming to just simply exercise the warrant, these officers dropped a bomb on the home. The police, they dropped a B-O-M-B, not shot, a bomb to get 4 black people out of the home. And the fire wound up spreading and destroying 60 homes, all because these white folks wanted to exercise a warrant on 4 black people. And this was just 28 years, this was 1985. Yeah. So, look, like I said, we can sit up here, people can try to be as pro-black and pro-militant, I'm going to carry guns and I'm going to get out in the streets, but I think we need to use our urban intellectual intelligence. Use your brains. Think about a more strategic way to get our point across that we are intelligent and we expect to be respected. Because trying to go toe-to-toe when they have more weapons than you is just fatal. That makes no sense. What are you going to do? So that's going to be written on your grave. They did, but they was some soldiers, Jack.
They were soldiers.
That's stupid. Because now you left your kids behind. Now you don't have any kids. Your kids are without fathers and without mothers. And who's going to raise them? And who's going to teach them? Because you run around here with guns trying to be, I'm hard. So we need to use our brains, man.
And everybody that's out here talking about, because I've seen this a lot too, people talking about I'm going to die and be a martyr for the cause. No, you're not. Because how many people actually know about Move? How many people know about Tulsa? Hell, how many people even know about Malcolm X? You are not going to be a martyr for the cause. You're going to be a dead Negro. That's it.
One of many.
Game over.
Exactly. I just keep tripping on that, man. They dropped a bomb on this house to get 4 black people out. And would you have done that if it were 4 white people in the house? To destroy a whole neighborhood just to get at 4 white people? I know that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, well, they did. They did it in Ruby Ridge and they did it in Waco, but that was a whole other story.
Right, and Waco was different because that was someplace far away from the city, brother. That compound of David Koresh was out away from the city. This was in a city block that had other innocent people to the left and to the right.
Yeah.
Right.
So come on now.
It was more to it than Move. More to the Move situation than just that too. There was some allegations that because they were back to Africa type movement that they didn't believe in, what white people consider basic sanitation. So, one of the reasons why they wanted to go in there was because they was concerned about the children that was in the home and whether or not they were being cared for, and because all of them had these matted dreadlocks, as they called them, matted dreadlocks. They had dreadlocks, which was at that time, dreadlocks was something that outside of Rastafarians you really didn't see in American society. You see what I'm saying? So, they were something different, and you know how they are. If something's different, we got to get rid of you. So, here comes the gun battle, because they shot back. Here comes the gun battle. Here comes the drop of the bomb. Same thing with David Koresh in Waco. They killed a couple of FBI agents because they told them, don't come up in here. Well, we're concerned about the children. The children's is fine up in here. Don't come up in here. And they got compounds like that all around the United States. We can deal with that in a different show as well. But last question that I'm going to ask concerning this same situation, because detractor, I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate. I'm with y'all. You know what I mean? I'm one of them type people that I don't believe like I should go out and show people I got a gun, because that makes me a target. I'm that Negro that's sitting back in the cut that you don't know nothing about, that's going to pop you in the back of your head, not trying to shoot you in the forehead. That's a whole nother story. But so I'm being devil's advocate. Detractors will say that all of that is a pacifist point of view, and that the only way that the dominant culture is going to respect us, it goes back to that old saying, power respects power, force respects force, violence respects violence. Even if it's only a few 38s, a few rusty 357 Magnums or what have you, as long as we know that they're going to shoot back, we're going to have to be circumspect in how we deal with this group of people, right? So the detractor would say, is it time for us to shed our pacifist background? What y'all think? Devil's advocate. Lightning round.
Well, first off, people like to use a lot of words that they don't really know what they mean.
True.
So it's not being a pacifist to say that black people that run outside of their house in groups with guns are going to get shot and killed, and that's not a good look. Like, that's not pacifism. That's realism.
That's realism.
That's not. We're not telling people not to get guns at all, and we're not telling people not to resist and not to organize and engage in civil resistance and revolts, otherwise known as riots, when black people do it. We're not telling people not to do those types of things. What we're telling you is to be intelligent about it.
Don't be stupid.
You don't see them running into Jewish neighborhoods shooting up everything. You don't see them running into Asian communities shooting up everything. You don't see them running into Arab communities with as much vitriol as is present in today's atmosphere for Muslims. You still don't see them running into Muslim communities the way they'll run into a black community. And I have never seen any real open carry group outside of white people. So to me, there is a jump in logic present that you would say, we need to show them we got guns too so they know we mean business. Like, there is a jump in logic for me to say that if we show them we got guns too, they'll stop shooting us. They have more guns. They have more ammunition. They have better armor. No, the way you control these things is through other forms of violence, through economic violence, through social violence. Martin Luther King was a master at economic and social violence. He didn't have to be physically violent because he would beat up your pocketbooks. You don't have to. Physical violence isn't the answer to everything. That's like that meme we posted not too long ago. It was one of them Confucius say joke memes that said it's not until a fly lands on your nuts that you learn that violence isn't the answer to everything. You don't have to be violent, gung-ho, gung-toting, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show these white crackers I mean business. And then one of the problems we got is we love to announce things. Like, black people love to announce shit. We love to announce shit. We can't just quietly do nothing. If you quietly build your community up, you quietly set those educational structures in place, those cultural structures in place, those economic structures in place, by the time they realize what's going to happen, doing anything to you would be severely detrimental to them. That's a cost-benefit analysis that they're very good at making, which is why they only mess with people that can't mess with them back. They're very good at cost-benefit analysis. They never fail to do a risk analysis before they make a move. That's why they don't make moves that are going to bite them in the ass later on. So we have to think, we have to be more intelligent. To me, anybody that says, I'm going to get a gun and show these crackers I mean business is operating purely from an emotional standpoint. They're not thinking about things strategically. They're not being tactical about it. They're not really thinking at all. That's just raw emotion that would say, well, if we go get guns, then these crackers will leave us alone because they'll know we'll shoot their asses in the face. Look, they willing to die for theirs. The KKK has proven that. They don't mind losing one or two soldiers, taking out an entire black community. That's not a big loss for them. If a nigger kills me, I'm going to take 30 down with me. You can't, look, you know what? Peace be the journey. Cool runnings.
See, that's what I talk about. That's why I like Fridays. That's why I was thinking about doing this on a regular basis, right? Just free fire, free fall. Whatever comes to mind, say what's on your mind, put a question out there, and let y'all go at it. But with that, I think I'm going to end this show on that note. I want to thank everybody that participated, E.T., T.B., P.I., that is Patrick, Erica, and Terry. I want to thank everybody who tuned in, everybody who listened. I haven't checked the chat room. Did anybody say anything in the chat room? Nope. But, of course, this will be up later on in a podcast version, so you'll be able to catch it on YouTube and on the page, basically on the page, because we got us a new media player that seems to be working okay until I guess they figure out that we putting out news like this, then all of a sudden it'll start having all kinds of glitches, but that's a whole nother story. But like I said, join us every day at 1 o'clock, every weekday at 1 o'clock. We'll be back Monday morning with new topics and hopefully new guests. We're going to start mixing it up a little bit. I want to try and get some people in to interview, but, getting people's schedules, synchronized with our schedule, just getting to be somewhat hard considering the fact that people got to work, they got to pay bills. But in any event, I want to thank everybody for listening, and remember, I advise everybody become a card-carrying member of urbanintellectuals.com. If you want to become a member, you can go to urbanintellectuals.com/members, and for $24 a year, $2 a month, you can become a member of something that's trying to move us forward as a people. Or if you just want to donate, you can go to urbanintellectuals.com/donate, and you can give to your heart's content. So, until next Monday, I bid everybody a safe weekend. Keep your heads up. Keep positive thoughts in your mind. And remember, this is a race that's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Everybody's not going to get there tomorrow, but eventually, if we keep moving forward, we will all get there. And with that, peace. Okay, we off the air, y'all.
Peace be the journey. Cool runnings.
Cool runnings, Juan. Cool runnings.